through each of these devices and I assign them out. I'm going to just do a quick demo with all of them, and you're going to have questions. It's a guarantee, because all this shit is weird to you guys. Sorry about the language. Sometimes you guys seem like you're all pretty hip. But at any rate, so hang on to those questions. Over the next 2 stops, I'll answer them in a group setting or one-on-ones. So that way we're not standing on this very noisy street corner for too long. Not to mention it's Friday night. So we already seen, 5 fire trucks and an EMT go by? Thermal imaging. So you should be able to see me in there. If you were a bridal party, I would be the hottest thing inside the video right now, but you're not a bridal party. So, but obviously I'm orange, red, and yellow, right? So with that, I'm the warmest thing in there. That's the easiest way to picture. I make that joke on purpose because I want you to remember white, hot, black, cold. We're looking for blue and black because we're literally looking for cold spots with this. So we're going to have cold spots in there, but we want them to move or to take shape on their own, normally in the shape of a person. So shoulders, neck, head, legs walking, arms moving, those kind of things. That's what we're looking for. Now, have we caught things with this? Absolutely we have. I wouldn't continue to use it if I haven't. Now, this is a FLIR camera. This is the real deal. This is what firemen use to actually help save people if they have to go break into a building. So, as great as the hardware is, the software sucks. So, again, we are going to be doing a few starts and stops. I splice all the video together, so you only have one video to watch from this. That way, and it will be in order. The other cool thing that I set up with this guy is that there's a blue dot bouncing around the screen. It's going to show you exactly where the coldest spot is in the frame at that particular moment. Now, I could set it up with hot and cold. We don't always see the hot anomalies. The cold ones are normally the ones that we'll capture. It also has temperatures next to it, and I have a center crosshair set up on there as well. So if we need to measure something directly, we can do that. I normally look for 15 plus degree temperature drops on that cold blue dot. So again, we're going to go over a few more things with this guy. But Mario, you've been staring at this thing the whole time. So you're going to hold this. Usually most people handle it one-handed. Okay. Keep your camera on your left. I'm going to stop the video. Keywords here would be 47, New York, Giants, anything relative to a bar, the name John. You guys are getting the gist. Or initials of JC. Don't let me forget to write that down. That's why I keep saying it. So
don't tell you when a letter comes up again here either.
Do you have another letter?
I got A.
JCA. Yeah, I got nothing.
Okay.
So that thing, again, most of that is going to be absolute garbage.
This too? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about yours too. All right, so Big John, here's why the place is haunted. John used to sit in the back of the bar, your right, my left, and he would tell the bartender if the cadets coming over from the Citadel, if they were old enough to drink or not. One night, 2 guys came in, they weren't old enough to drink. So Big John had the bartender throw them out. They left pretty pissed off. They came back the next night, and they tried to steal the cash register from the front of the bar. John saw what was going on. He slammed down his beer and went over and just started pounding on these guys, just beating the hell out of them. A couple of gunshots went off. John got grazed in the neck, but the bullet landed behind him in the wall. After being the only one that's been shot, John got up, went back to the bar, told the bartender to get him another beer, get the 2 guys on the floor, an ambulance. Irony of the story, nobody died in that story. Not every paranormal happening is from a death. What's haunting the place is the bullet hole. It's allegedly still here. Even if this new renovation of Big John's filled it in, that means that they sealed Big John's blood inside the wall. So, Big John's blood is allegedly still here. People that sit in the front of this bar tend to get a little queasy, nauseous, or headache. This is why we're here. You're seeking out paranormal activity tonight, and I don't know how it's going to affect you because I don't know y'all like that yet. And if anybody feels any of those symptoms, I kind of need to know immediately so we can move the whole group, get that person to safety. Is that fair? These things do happen. I have to give the warning. This got really real for some of you all of a sudden. So let's move on.
How did you spell his last name?
Kennedy. C-A-N-N-A-D-Y.
It just went J-Can.
You're shitting me.
Yeah,
did it really?
Yeah.
J-Can.
Yeah.
J-C-A-N.
Like, I'm writing it down now so I don't forget. Just because if we get a jumble
it went off when you were talking about him.
Yep.
Like,
of course it did, because that's what happens on a nightly basis. Welcome to my life, everybody.
It's just that sadness.
Yeah, he was a pretty jovial guy. And he died of, old people diseases. I want to say it was like a heart attack or something. Wow. So I'm pretty excited about the J-Can coming through. That means it's going to be a good night. And I can't make the ghost do anything, guys, just so you know. So paranormal activity is not guaranteed. It's not something I can put in writing. Again, the ghosts are going to do whatever they're going to do because they're not on the payroll. So let's get our mind off our own health, even though I just brought it up. So did you guys take any other historical tours here in Charleston?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We did like a walking
So
alley one
somebody
today.
probably talked about a big earthquake, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
we all talk about it because it's an anomaly for South Carolina. We're supposed to have hurricanes, not earthquakes.
Yep.
And we do get quite a few hurricanes coming through here. So if you guys ever had a fear of like massive blizzards and whatnot up there, you've never been through a hurricane. It's crazy. But anyway, the earthquake. This building is allegedly where the first death occurred from that earthquake. The white mantle you see in the middle of the building also wraps around the front on the very busy East Bay Street. A piece of it broke off, hit somebody in the back of the head, and killed them. The previous owner used to see dark shadows in the middle of East Bay Street after closing. I say allegedly a lot with this story because I have no proof. It's just a great segue so nobody's thinking about getting sick on the tour. Again, I brought it up again. So, are we ready to learn more about these gadgets?
Yeah.
Even though you guys have already kind of poked questions, which is good. It means you're curious. All right, let's head up this way. Yes, quite a few. We're going to see what this car's doing because we're going to be cutting through here. I'm going to be staring at your shirt all night trying to make sure that this is death grip. Think of it this way. I wouldn't give the warning if people haven't.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
So, this is for us to talk further about your devices. This is a very quick stop. So, we're at the Big Red Barn. This is where they keep some of the horses for your carriage rides. You guys can probably smell them. I can't. Again, I'm out here 7 nights a week. Unless, of course, it rains or I move somebody. So, it's kind of nice to have a night off, by the way. So
Yeah.
Not that I don't love my job. So, the history here is really simple, and I made it that way on purpose because it just kind of gives a great example for all your devices. This is the same Red Barn that held horses that delivered milk and eggs to the residents of Charleston. So, keywords here being delivery, milk, eggs, anything relative to a season. Let's talk communication devices first. Make some sense out of it. What's the first question everybody wants to ask, say, a Ouija board or communication device like a spirit box? You guys see movies and watch TV? What do they ask first? What's your name? What else? What, are you a ghost? Well, we'll take that one. So normally the question is anybody here?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's because there's yes, no answers on a Ouija board. So in the event that Marcel hears the answer of no, I'm not a ghost, that means that they're a ghost and they're here. So the point is, we do not ask yes or no questions when we're out here. The reason why, even if you're a skeptic, which doesn't show that anybody here is, you're going to go after the details, right? Have some fun with this. In the event, when I'm teaching people how to use communication devices, ask questions you already know the answers to at first. Like, what color is the Big Red Barn, if anybody's here? Obviously, we are looking and listening for the color red. Now, keep in mind, Marcel's using song lyrics and DJs to be able to convey messages back to us. The word red might not be available to a DJ or song lyric. Fire truck, heart, blood. Those two things are specifically red. I would take that as an acceptable answer if it was direct. What color is a Big Red Barn? Blood. I'm good. However, most of the night, I'm going to require there's at least two things going on before I'm going to label something as being paranormal, even coming close to it. Now, the J can, I'm super stoked. I'm not going to lie. Like, this is me excited. But we didn't have, we couldn't really tell about the EMF because we were too close to an electrical pole. I don't believe that you were filming just yet. So again, unless we have something to kind of confirm that, like the name John or something relative to a bar or a fight or a cadet or any of those things, I won't be super convinced of it yet, but it is very exciting that you had something so specific. When I say something else to kind of verify it, let's kind of go through that. Let's say your word list has the name Art on it. That doesn't mean anything to us over here by itself.
Right.
She hears the number 40. Together, Art Faircloth was number 40 on Big John's team. You see where I'm going with that? This is more like an escape room if you've ever done one of those. We're going to piece some puzzles together. You guys are going to collect. I'm going to put the puzzle together. So that's kind of how this works. The fun part is actually collecting the pieces. You're doing the fun part. So,
Yeah.
going through the research is the fun part for me tomorrow morning when I find something new, or we have something great like J Can. So happy about that.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it's
super
industrial.
stoked. All right, so camera. We only have one tonight. Again, 2 rules. People don't like to be filmed, and they don't like their cars filmed. Just so you know. We're going to be in spaces like this where people's cars are going to be parked. Just don't, stay steadfast on it for too long. It's part of the reason why I like to use this one first, because I have another one. It's very Ghostbustery-like and crazy lights and handles.
This one's a little,
yeah, it's a little low-key. Right. So, but I do want you to try to keep one of us in view most of the time if you can. The reason why, we're going to be the warmest thing out here. So I made that joke at the beginning. It's a lot easier to find a cold spot if there's a warm spot in the frame to kind of give us the contrast of colors. The other thing is to try to keep the sky out of view. The reason for that is because the blue dot we discussed earlier defaults to the sky because there's no surface. It will give us false positives of negative degrees when we're at 60 degrees down here on the ground.
Gotcha.
So kind of keep that in mind. Some places that will be impossible. Just do your best. And I will kind of do the Andy's coming. That means there's going to be another tour walking by or so forth and so on. And when we're at other tours, they don't like to be filmed either. They didn't pay to get filmed. And again, they get jealous of you guys as it is. And let's just put it this way. I don't have a whole lot of friends in this industry.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm good with it. We're going to discuss your device a little bit more in depth at the next location when we start using that REM pod. So are there any other major questions that I can answer before we truly get started? I know I talk a lot. Wow. There's no way I'm that thorough, guys.
Good so far.
All
So
right.
you're recording the whole time?
Yeah.
Or
He's going to do some starts and stops.
Oh, okay.
So I know he kind of started it on his own on his way
Yeah.
over here, which was perfectly fine.
Okay.
So every once in a while, I'll kind of give it, in between spaces, I'll say, let's go ahead and cut that video.
Gotcha.
And give it a break.
Okay.
Anything coming out of your spirit box at this point?
No, just I heard cold shower. Don't think that's right.
You don't know that. Okay. I'm withholding information.
This one says hurt, which...
So when you want to see all of your words, hit the little white box to the right of the word. You'll be able to scroll through them, so that way you can actually see them. Just don't hit the red X's. It
Right.
will eliminate it from the list. And then to get back to your main screen, you hit the top right corner arrow.
Got it.
All right. Now that everybody knows how to use their device except for Dan, let's go learn some road history. What do you think? All right. Let's get away from football players and ponies. See why this is normally 2 hours versus 90 minutes, like every other tour?
Yeah.
We need a 30-minute instruction video.
No. Well, hit him in the neck. Yeah, well, I think in Chicago, there's that hole there in the church. Get it out.
So the bullet hole is still there.
Yeah, they covered over it.
Anyway, I think I mentioned this, but November, December are kind of my experimental months. It's where I start changing the route up just a little bit. So today's route is not the normal like what you would have seen on TripAdvisor. So you've probably seen a plethora of like, oh my God, look at all these locations. Yeah, we're not going to all of those locations. Some of those are brand new, and some of those places I might not know everything about, so it might be just a quick little bit of history, and then you guys get started to be able to teach me something back.
Okay.
So our last stop is that way, just so you know. So depending on, and it's not always like based on like, oh, this is how I have to go every single night. If something happens, like where you're getting words or you're hearing things that lead me to another location that I know about or we're allowed to go to, then we're gonna go. Like we need to see what's going on, just so you guys know. So welcome to a parking lot. Congratulations, you made it. I told you, weird spaces, right? So the funny thing is I was looking to retire this location because I was getting some dark messages for a few weeks in a row. So I left this location for about 2 weeks alone, and then I came back, and as long as we are short-lived here, we do okay. Like, we don't piss them off pretty badly. So let's kind of get to it. What is this place? This used to be the Eliza and Charles Pinckney Mansion. Their mansion sat in the front of the space where all those cars are parked. It was facing East Bay Street. Eliza's garden lined up with the Five Church restaurant over there and came all the way across, and we are standing in the servant and slave quarters for the home. So, I like to always give you the layout first. So who the heck were Charles and Eliza? They had a son named Charles. They had a nephew named Charles. That's 3 different Charleses. That's why we look for secondary verifiers. We don't know which Charles we're talking to if one decides he wants to come through. That's why I need the verifier so I know which one. But anyway, the son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution for South Carolina. That's a big deal for us, but I hate politics. We're not going to be discussing politics. Some of you had it looking concerned. So, like, oh shit, what kind of tour did I sign up for? But anyway, we're going to be talking about Eliza because she has a much more interesting story. So, Eliza married Charles at a young age. If we're going to ask her how old she was when she got married, you're not going to hear numbers according to the colonial times that she came from. Think of today's standards of being young. The only reason I bring that up is because her husband was over double her age when they married. Kind of a creepy age gap during the 1700s and definitely a creepy age gap now. So kind of put that in the back of your brains. Again, I'm going to withhold information on purpose. When she married Charles, because her father was over in England and he thought he was dying, he's trying to bring all of his kids home to England so he could see him for one last time. And Eliza didn't think he was dying, so instead she got married. It's 1744. You don't get married in 1744 to get a green card. We're not even a country yet. So she did marry Charles out of love, and there was no foul play or affair. Do not poke the bear on that one. We'll piss her off. Talking about a very prominent English woman. So she did get married, and she was right. Her father did not die right away. Instead, he starts sending her gifts from England to this space. One of those gifts happens to be the plant seeds of indigo. You guys have been in Charleston for at least a day that I know of. You've seen the word indigo somewhere. Indigo is a plant that makes blue dye, makes our blue jeans blue. Nobody's wearing it today. Cool. I normally have one. So.
I got jeans on.
He's got jeans
Are they
on.
denim? Oh, they are blue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're just dark. Sorry, I thought you had like
You're
black
good.
or gray. I work in the dark. You think I'd be able to see that? But at any rate, she didn't know what to do with these seeds when she got them. She had to learn from her slaves how to keep it cultivated. It's not always hot here. You guys got it because you're here in December. But when she figured it out, she moved it to a cash crop plantation, got a hold of her dad and said, our rice plantations are going downhill. We're now going to make a killing with this indigo. And we have an international businesswoman during colonial times. So that's the boring stuff. Let's get into the...
Maybe. I don't know.
It's vague. It's very vague. Again, we're looking for the specifics. So let's kind of go through a series of questions, and with basically 2 people using communication devices, you can kind of do a grab bag of whatever you want to go for. Just pick one set of questions to focus on at first. That way nobody's like focused on the same question. Normally when I have my groups of 10, there's at least 6 to 7 people with communication devices, and I go right down the line. So we're going to start off with the mansion. It's obviously not here. Find out what happened to it. When did that happen? We're obviously looking for a very specific date. So again, very interesting when it does pop up. So it's obviously some sort of tragedy. Kind of keep that in mind. So earthquake, hurricane, that kind of mentality. The children, if you're going to ask about the children, please tread lightly. Only ask how many children she had and what their names were. The reason why is because there's a tragedy among those children. If we poke the bear, all activity will stop. Have you had any numbers yet, by the way?
No,
Nothing.
not since we got it here.
Okay, just super weird. Usually by now we have at least a small something. So maybe we're not going to get a whole lot of activity at this location. But anyway, back to questions. Eliza's death. That's usually the fun one. That's where she's pretty open. Ask how old she was, what she died from, where she's buried, and which president was the pallbearer at her funeral. So again, the president piece is very specific, obviously. Notice that none of these questions are yes-no answers. So kind of keep that in mind. I think that's all we're going to focus on for now. We're going to see if we can get any kind of activity out of it. I do have to work with Dan for a few minutes to show him how to use that REM pod. We do not go in between vehicles. Just stay away from the cars. You guys got the gist, right? We all seem like, very responsible adults. Dan, you got that shitty grin on your face. You like looking to break into some cars?
Trying to get into some mischief, but...
Okay. Well, then you would need Mario's device, because if I was a car thief, that would be the tool I would have. 'Cause he knows exactly how long those cars have been sitting here. So he's right. He's looking at it. He's like, yeah, that engine over there is pretty warm. So we are going to spread out in here. I'm going to start bouncing around with all of you. If you want to hang out while I go, while you're listening and I'm showing him how to use that, and that way you're not by yourself, by all means do so. But yeah, let's spread out. Let's ask some questions. And asking questions doesn't always have to be out loud. It's whatever you focus on, whatever you're comfortable with. If you're weird about talking to people that you can't see, I'm okay with that. Again, it's whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to show him how to use this. Spread out. Have some fun. Let's do this. You recording already?
Yep.
Still, I
Yep.
guess I should say?
Yeah.
Nice slow movements out of that. All right, so no numbers have really shown up yet. I want to make sure you're not on hold, which is good. Yeah, you don't want to be touching anything on the face of this.
Don't ask about.
Greetings. Go ahead and pull up one time.
You gotta go. I gotta keep you in my view. Someone. What are you gonna ask? Ask something. You got the. She said she was open about her death.
Not her age.
Yeah. Her age.
What's her name again? I should ask her, what's her name? Something with an E.
I saw the view pop up earlier. Ask a question.
You can ask a question too. Griffin, how did you die?
How did you die?
She's very open about it.
Hickory Mansion. Job.
Job came up again. Or maybe, no, it's been on job. Hasn't changed.
Eliza, how did you move on?
Buddha.
What?
It says Buddha.
I doubt that was
Yeah, no.
We were moving.
Not talking to us.
That you know of. Let me see your word list. See what you got going on there. Yeah, that's a She's a very religious Christian woman. So Buddha would not even be in her vocabulary.
Yeah. It says Eliza, right?
Eliza. Eliza. And when I say anagrams coming out of your box there, one of the first nights we used it, we actually had the letters all show up from Eliza's name with an added U. So it was E-U-L-Z-I-A. so it looked like Eulzia, I was still pretty stoked.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot going on.
Yeah.
A couple of things about this device. So first off, I scaled back your sensitivity a little bit when we were over there because we were near electrical poles. I'm going to crank it back up again. So it's this little knob right here, and it's all the way up. You turn it clockwise.
Got it.
When you have a full row at the bottom, and it's going to start overwriting the next line, and you can't make anything out of what's already at the bottom, reset it. You turn this guy down to 6 o'clock and go back up to 9.
Got it.
And then it'll give you a nice fresh start.
Got it.
So again, the JCAN I already wrote down, so that way we don't have to remember it anymore. It's in the past. But again, that's already cranked up. You don't need to worry about these other two buttons because we're still teaching the Ghost how to use it with just that one. What these other two do, this is temperature differences. So if there's a temperature scale based on the sensitivity of it, it will give you a letter. The other thing is tap. So they want you to try to teach the Ghost how to tap the device. Like it's kind of a spooky thing when you're walking around and I keep saying tap, 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 tap. And it's like, it's from you walking. It's from your jostled movements. So again, I like to use just the EMF. So that way you guys kind of have a barometer at the same time that Dan has one.
Got it.
But you're still on Buddha.
Yeah,
And again,
we're
I
still
know
on Buddha.
being a filmographer for one of these isn't the most exciting job, but once you see how these different spaces work, you're going to see each location looks a lot different than the next one, just based on the temperatures of what holds the sun's heat.
Yep.
Any numbers coming through too?
No, but it was doing this like a minute ago, and apparently it also said daughters at the same time it was going to do.
Daughters, like plural?
Yeah,
There's only
I
one.
think.
There's only
It
one.
might have been daughter.
I'll write down daughters just in case the daughter's name actually pops up. So,
I don't know if it's relevant, but I asked it how old it was when it died, and it said lived at the same time I said died.
I'll take lived. Because she might be wanting you to ask her how old she was when she died. How long did she live? Kind of have to take things in perspective sometimes. Anything else that you may have heard out of there? And you'll get the gist of how to listen to it.
I heard like 2022 and 2023.
So anytime there's a year that's current, because it's such a common thing, I throw them out.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, it's too common. It's too easy. Because I will tell you that Eliza was born in 1722 and Big John's first jersey number was 20. It's too easy for me.
Yeah.
So again, we want something, like if there was 22 people that died in a plane crash, that's a little bit different. So again, it's not the year that you're going to commonly hear. Wow, there's another full row
I
already.
mean, it's just like random letters, it looks like.
It's like a prescription.
Yeah. Magic.
And the word magic.
So, unless she died from magic.
I'm going to pull us up to that corner up there. Let's get everybody up there, just because we're back in the slave quarters. I can't prove anything that's going on back here.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because there's no actual relevance. We're going to see if there's anything going on in this corner, just because that's the slave quarters. And there's no records of that. I can't prove it. Go with the foot. You know what I mean? You can't prove it. Okay, good. Now drop back. That's what they call it ghost hunting. They don't stand still.
Hand.
Mhm.
I got go away and then hand.
So we're gonna see if something else pops up from her. Don't tell her that you have go away on there, because if she hears a term like leave, we don't want you here, unwelcome. Those are the types of terms that we were getting before, but they were a little bit more forceful than just go away on that. We were getting multiples in the same evening. I think a lot of that is coming from you, Dan. I really do. I think it's just the way you move. You got anything coming up out of yours? Nothing that you can make out, at least?
Huh?
Nothing that you can make out?
I did hear, is this a game to you, Matt or Max?
Is this a game to you? I'm going to take that as a sign. All right, come on over. Here's why I'm calling it at this point. So, again, this was the location. Go ahead and turn off that REM pod, just because I think it's going to blind you to death. You heard, is this a game to you? And she had the phrase, go away. To me, that says, we're not welcome here tonight. So, That's part of the reason why I wanted to retire this location to begin with.
I just keep hitting J a bunch of times.
Q.
And then you had the name Matt or Max?
One of them, just like a mass.
His name is Mario.
No.
So the only thing I'm like super stoked about is we did see Dan's device go all the way up to a 16.1, and we definitely had a definitive blue motion coming through. So something got close enough to where it was actually, able to make it go off, and it was verified. So you're going to hear my explanation of how, to use that device when you guys go through your audio, because obviously you're going to hear our conversation. But let me explain the readings from the numbers at least, and kind of put things in perspective. So behind your TV is a bunch of wires, right? If you were to put that device behind your TV, it's going to read about 40 to 60 milligauss, which is the same unit of measure that we're using here. So he got all the way up to a 16 where there's no electricity. So the highest that we the average for this location is between 18 to 22. That's an average spike for this location, so I'm pretty happy with the 16 that we got close to that 18. But I will tell you, if you were standing next to a microwave that was running on high, that thing's going to go all the way up to about 150 to 170, depending on the wattage of your microwave. The highest we've ever seen that device go has been here, 214 milligauss. Like, those are dangerous levels. So with a guy with epilepsy, I'm not playing with electricity in the air with a neurological disorder. We left. I'm just going to put it out there. That was we barely got started and we had to leave right away.
Yeah.
So now that you guys know what those readings are, 16 to 18 is going to be that's an average for this space. It will not be the average for other spaces, just so you know. That would be considered a high reading for most other spaces, especially where there's no electricity at all. So let's go through the answers here. Did we get, and something might actually trigger where you're like, oh, I heard that. You know what I mean? So again, it's going to be one of those pieces where when you're first learning, and with this particular location, I kind of expect some of those, I heard this, I heard that. I kind of knew that because I wasn't sure if it was something else. So, what do you guys want to know about first? Mansion?
Yep.
Since we're standing in it?
Yep.
This tablet, I swear. I need to get a new one. Let's see. So, this is the only photograph of the mansion we actually have. So this is exactly where you're standing. This is considered fire damage from the Great Fire of 1861. That happened on December 11th of that year. At times, when we hear the word fire, flame, blaze, anything relative to a fire, we will get at least 2 out of the 3 digits from the actual date of the event. So 12/11/61. At times, we would get December or 11 or 1861. I've even had an 1861 pop up before with the word fire. Every tour is going to tell you about a great fire, just so you know, because we've had dozens and we have enough of them to talk about. This one in particular, this is a map of Charleston. You can see the orange is obviously the fire. You're standing on the tiny little green dot. That's where we're at right now. This was a giant fire. Literally went from one side of the peninsula all the way to the other, and that is the direction that it went in. So this was $5 to $9 million worth of damage, just so you guys know. That is a lot of damage in 1861. I don't know what the hell it equates to now, because inflation changed again, as it does every day now.
I don't know if it's relevant, but it's just a teenager.
She was a teenager when she started running the plantations for her father. She was 14. So, very interesting. This is, I don't know why it changed color on me. Where's the button? There we go. This is Eliza Lucas Pinckney. This is the woman we are trying to get in touch with, and the one that we try not to piss off. But I will tell you the reason why I use her maiden name is because she's the second wife named Eliza from Charles, back to back. First wife dies in January of 1744. 5 months later, he marries this one. Kind of a jerk move, or really smart, depending on how you look at it, what kind of guy you are. But the first wife, her name was Eliza Lamb Pinckney. So, as far as the children go, there were 4 of them. So sometimes the number 4 will just pop up. If we're poking the bear, we will hear the number 3. First child, we already talked about, right? Charles, signer of the Constitution. The next one is Thomas. Fought in a Revolutionary War battle, shot in his left leg, and captured by the British. So, we will get the term left leg British captured, and that was during the Battle of Camden. That is here in South Carolina, and we've even had the word Camden show up on your word list along with left leg on another spirit box in the same evening, which is exactly how I learned about it. So again, I was kind of like a oh shit moment for me. Yes, this is good stuff. I didn't know it in real time, but I found it through the research. When he was released from the British, they actually left him on a cane the rest of his days. So whenever you see a portrait of Thomas Pinckney, it's usually of his right side to hide his left leg, and there's a cane going over his lap. So The next child is the one I asked you guys not to poke the bear with. This is baby George. What do you got?
I got a name.
What's the name?
Abigail.
I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Because Eliza had a little sister that went by Polly. It wasn't her real name, though.
Okay.
I can't remember her real name off the top of my head. Because we've had the name Polly show up. So I'll have to look and see what the real name was. But baby George. The weird thing about baby George, this is where things get a little creepy. He doesn't have a grave, doesn't have a headstone. It is a possibility, based on the times, because it was 1747 when he died, that he was mummified and kept right here in the home, waiting for his mother to pass away so he could be buried with her. So it's a possibility. I can't prove it because you can't Google mummied baby and not expect a phone call from the government. Just so you know. Don't try it at home. It's going to get even more weird with him once we start talking about Eliza's death. But one last child, the only daughter. Her name was Harriet, not Abigail. She married Daniel Horry. Horry County is Myrtle Beach. None of you are from here. That's about 2.5 hours north of here. So you kind of see where she lived. Wouldn't have been a 2.5 hour car ride for Eliza. Lots of letter writing instead. In the event we do hear from Harriet, which is very seldom, quill, ink, paper, anything relative to letter writing. That's usually the things that we get out of her. Eliza's death. These are the good ones, right? So she was 70 years old when she passed away. So that's a long time for a woman to be living during colonial times. She was getting treatments up in Philadelphia. They were trying to figure out what the hell she actually had. It turned out to be breast cancer. We didn't even know what breast cancer was during that time. It was 1793.
How did they find that out later that it was?
Or medical records, all the symptoms. So it's the only way that, and 9 out of 10 websites will tell you that it was indeed breast cancer. But she died in Philadelphia. She's buried in Philadelphia, which should raise 2 questions in your brain. First off, I don't take you to actual cemeteries. Why? You don't get a whole lot of activity there. None of you are going to hang out near your grave when you're gone. You're going to go to your mansions 400 miles away, which is why we're here. The other thing is baby George. If my theory is true, they would have transported him by horse and carriage from here all the way up there. That's a long trek. You all look old enough to remember Oregon Trail. Somebody's getting dysentery, right? Yep. So, yeah, that's not a good thing. I don't want to be that driver either, carrying a dead baby up there. It's not cool. Who wants to take a guess at who the president was that was the pallbearer at Eliza's funeral? 1793. Where's my history buffs? Anybody? Going once?
Not George Washington?
It was George Washington. So, here's the weird thing, and I don't think I played this trick tonight. Normally, when I bring my groups in here, I normally tell you I am not going to give you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse, like what we did over there with the Big Red Barn. So that way I subliminally put George Washington in the back of everybody's brain, seeing who's going to just spout it off. Yeah. You know, I do that on purpose, but I didn't do that trick tonight, and you guessed it by deduction and reasoning, so good on you. The rest of you passed with a fail, because I didn't even play the trick. So I'm the wordsmith, I usually get 1. I can't believe I forgot that tonight. Like, this is a fun group. I usually like to do the fun stuff with the fun groups. So, any other major questions about the Pinckneys? I know this is a lot of historical, like prominent English family, plantation owner kind of things.
I said 4th.
4th?
I got dirt and then dirty.
Dirt is what I would consider a garden phrase, and you're going to see sometimes there's themes to phrases. So in this location, we constantly have shovel, dirt, flower, anything relative to gardening, but I am going to write down 4th because there were 4 children. So again, we were just discussing them. I don't have a verifier for that yet, but we'll see what actually comes up out of it.
So was the house damaged from the fire? Like it completely was gone entirely?
Well, the house wasn't just made of wood, like most other buildings in Charleston at the time. It was also made out of, plaster and brick and all kinds of other materials, so it didn't burn completely. Not to mention it was the beginning of the fire. It actually started up the road and came down this way. So we're still probably within the first few hours of the fire, and it just kept growing as it went out to the coast that way. So it wasn't completely like burned to the ground, but it was destroyed enough to where nobody could live in it. It was uninhabitable.
So then after that they left?
It actually sat for a little while, to my understanding, before they actually tore it down.
Oh wow, okay.
So trying to find deeds that old.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still within the Pinckney family. So all of the kids had moved on and bought other properties, but I want to say like they kept using this for any visitors that were coming through town. So there was a lot of other Pinckneys, and you can actually find a lot of Pinckneys, I want to say, in Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it is interesting. It just kind of like, I remember seeing Pinckney
popped,
something.
Yeah.
It's something to look up in your phone.
Garden.
Now we have garden and dirt.
I got dirt and dirty.
I don't have to write yours down because it's doing it for me.
Yeah.
I have to write hers down. So she did hear garden, so I'm going to take that one as well. Now she wants to talk to us, even though she booted us out earlier. All right, so here's what's going to happen from here. We are going to go to an alley. It's about 2 blocks from here. We're going to be cutting through the market. It's going to be a little loud over there. You can ignore your readings because, again, you got the electrical on the sidewalks. We're not going to be filming until we get into the alley. Okay. The alley that we're going to is pretty popular. Make a lot of sense here in just a moment. So, Marcel, did you hear anything coming out of yours?
Not really.
Okay, so with yours in this location, just definitely keep an eye on things. We don't normally see spikes more than that 2.5. Like we'll get some getting close to 2.5, but if it goes above that, I definitely need to know. Your camera's on the right, Mario, so stop your video.
Larry.
Yeah, I don't know Larry.
Sorry, Larry.
That's another tour up there.
Yeah.
That's heard him telling the story that normally goes with this location. So, Philadelphia Alley. That's exactly where we're standing. You guys went through an alley tour yesterday, right?
We heard about some stuff here. I don't know if it's necessarily haunted, but some not so nice stuff.
Yeah, this used to be called Dueler's Alley. Did they tell you about Dr. Ladd?
No.
Oh.
We heard about like the brick.
We talked about the bricks.
Yeah, I'm going to mention the bricks.
I figured.
And the only reason I'm going to mention the bricks is because it's exactly why we go to the next space that we're going to is because I've been kicked out of this place because of those bricks. Wow. So yeah, that's the fun part of the story. So okay. I'll mention it.
I said I wish you would when you said bricks.
I said what?
I wish you would.
And there's a reason why I still talk about those damn bricks.
So afraid of you.
And then Europe.
Frustrate Europe.
I don't think I've ever seen afraid of you on there before. Again, I've been using that thing for like 6 years. And I still get phrases that I'm like, I've never seen that. So, this place used to be called Dueler's Alley. Why? Because this is disease. Interesting one. Remind me to write that one down. Only because I want to get a verifier for it. Because that's a good one. This is where some of the duels used to occur. Keep in mind that during 1786, dueling was still illegal. So again, this is only where some of the duels actually took place. This story, we all tell the same story, but you're ghost hunting. So again, we're not going to go explore the space. Again, I just like to tell the story in here so we kind of stir some shit up, and then we move on to the next location. Here's how it goes. There's a doctor that moves down here from Rhode Island, which is where your first RI will be coming from. It looks like you're already like overrating, so I'm going to just reset.
Yeah.
Try to help you out. He moves down here from Rhode Island because he's supposed to get married to his fiancée, Amanda. Amanda just inherited a bunch of money from her dead parents. She has an attorney helping her out with all of this cash. The attorney thinks that Dr. Ladd is just after Amanda's money, so he tells Amanda to get rid of the doctor, which, by the way, the doctor's full name, which is often shown up here, Dr. Joseph Brown Ladd. So if you hear brown-eyed girl, there's a reason for it. Kind of giving you a gist of more because you're struggling a little bit, which is okay. I expect it. But anyway, Dr. Ladd moves to Charleston to prove that he's not just after Amanda's money. As he's coming into town, a coachman set him up to be robbed and killed. So he had a gunman inside waiting to kill this guy so that way he could take his money. However, somebody was walking by with the name Ralph Isaacs. I stop on Ralph because he has the same initials as where the doctor came from, R.I. Even before we had the Ouija board device, it was showing up on different spirit boxes. This is the reason why I bought the Ouija board device, just so you know. Initials mean something. So let's break it down a little bit. Ralph says, hey doctor, new guy in town. You don't want to stay here. I know this guy and he's going to try to kill you. I got some friends at 59 Church Street. You can stay with them, rent a room, you'll be safe. Dr. Ladd took him up on the offer, the two become friends. The longer the doctor stays here, the more money he's making. He's proving his point that he wasn't just after Amanda's money. So, Amanda gets wind of this, she's moving down soon so they can get married soon. Dr. Ladd becomes known as the Whistling Doctor. He whistled all the time. Pretty happy guy. Making money, girls coming down. Yeah. Keep in mind, every haunted city you're ever going to visit in the future has a cliche whistling ghost. I'm just going to put it out there. They all have one. We actually have proof. I'm going to get to that. However, Ralph and the doctor go see plays together. They can't sit next to each other. Why? The doctor makes more money. He gets better seats. That's just the way the hierarchy works in Charleston. So they talk about these plays on the way home. They go see Richard III one night. They're arguing over the new actress that was here in town. Dr. Ladd thought she was great. Ralph, not so much. The argument gets even more heated when Ralph starts insulting the doctor's fiancée back home in Rhode Island. So the obby gets very ugly. They go their separate ways. And I told you Ralph has friends here. He goes to his friends at the newspaper and puts an ad in the paper telling the whole city of Charleston what he thinks of the doctor. We're going to see a lot of cats between here and our last location, just so you know. And I'll explain more once we pass the location of where they come from. Because again, it's kind of a creepy little story of why you see so many cats around here. Yeah, it's kind of a ghost story, kind of. The ad in the newspaper was kind of like telling the whole city of Charleston what Ralph thought of the doctor, like you're a disgrace to society kind of mentality. Dr. Ladd sees the ad, he rebuttals with, let's go to Jeweler's Alley. We're going to settle this shit once and for all. He didn't say shit because it's 1786. It's very proper. So they came down, they took their 10 paces, they turned, the doctor pointed his gun in the air, and he shot. He didn't want to kill his friend. He just wanted to have the courage and bravery to show up to the fight, which was often what happened, even though he's the one who proposed the duel. Ralph has his one shot, though, and he puts it in the kneecap on the doctor. Obviously giving you a lot of very specific terms. Kneecap, doctor, that kind of thing. Dr. Ladd drops to the ground. He didn't die. His friends picked him up. They carried him home to 59 Church Street, where he dies 10 or 4 days later, depending on which version of the story that you're reading. Here's the weird thing. He refused medical treatment. Why? He's a doctor. He probably tried to bleed out this bullet himself. Wouldn't have been surgery at that point. He probably had lead poisoning. So he did try to bleed it out and failed, and died on November 2nd of 1786. So, the ghost stories that every tour normally tells down here, which is super weird that we have the whole alley to ourselves at this point, because normally this place is flooded with tours because it's a normal staple. You can hear the whistles as you go through here. Do you hear how quiet it is right now? Mm-hmm. It is always this quiet. Busy Saturday afternoon, it's this quiet. Don't ask me how or why, it just is. Keep in mind, if you're going to try this on your own and go through the whole alley, turn on your voice recorders, see if you capture some whistles in the background. What I want you to keep in mind is every local knows this story. Anybody walking up and down Queen Street or Cumberland is going to throw a whistle down the alley. I do it every night. I showed you where I park. I pass the alley on my way back. If my daughter's on the tour, we race to see who's going to throw the whistle first. It's just something we do, especially since we got booted out of here. Here's how I got kicked out. This is the fun part. This alley didn't come all the way through. I don't know how much history they gave you on this specific alley, but I've done thorough research on it. The reason why it didn't go all the way through is because it was blocked off about halfway between us and Cumberland Street. This is where they kept the livestock for the city of Charleston, so they had to keep them kind of barricaded in, which means those bricks down there are older. Those are sun-dried bricks from slave children. There's one full handprint and fingerprint swipes in those bricks at the end. I used to go all the way through this alley until one night, November 26th of 2020. I treat this brick, by the way, the same way I treat a grave. That kid is not staring at the brick in the afterlife. Everybody wants to try to get some kind of activity out of it. So, November 26th, 2020, my entire group is huddled around one brick waiting for something to happen. I'm trying to shoo them along because it's outside the dining room window of the beautiful mansion at the end of the alley, and we're after hours. Really wasn't sure what I was doing just yet. Again, I've only been doing the tour for 3 years. So, I shooed them along, but he saw us. He came out screaming. Daughter was on the tour that night. She thought it was great because Dad's getting yelled at. We moved on. The next day was Thanksgiving. I worked in retail for over 20 years in retail management, many of those years for Walmart. I will never work another Thanksgiving for the rest of my life. So, did not have a tour. The next day, I got a phone call asking me to go down halfway, like what we're allowed to do, or to reroute my group. I decided it wasn't really fair for my group of 10 to try to investigate a space with 20 to 60 other people. I rerouted my group and told them, I don't believe in this whole pirate story we're about to go into. I'm going to tell you what I know and see what happens. But before we left, somebody heard the name Anne on a spirit box. I did not tell them we were going to be investigating the female pirate Anne Bonny. So I was kind of like, all right, maybe something is going to happen. We get up there. I told what little bit I did know about piracy at the time. Somebody else hears the number 300 come through on their spirit box. I have no idea what it means. I write it down. I'm doing the research the next day. We were there on November 28th of 2020. Anne Bonny's trial for piracy, November 28th of 1720. The exact 300-year anniversary.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, all right, damn it. Now I got to learn about pirates because I'm a vampire guy. So I've read more books on piracy, debunking a lot of the myths and legends and the kind of things that you guys hear and see on your movies and documentaries. And everything we're about to discuss at the next location came from a minimum of 2 resources. So my master's in creative writing came in really handy with this, just so you guys know. So again, it is one of those pieces where it's a hit or miss location. You're either going to have a lot going on or nothing at all. And I'm hoping, like, by this point, you're starting to get the gist of how to listen to it, so that way you can get us some of those really cool clues. Dan, with your device, is kind of a key feature of that location. The only place I've ever gotten a red reading out of the REM pod has been at that location when we asked Anne Bonny about her hair color. So, again, very interesting piece. So, let's go discuss some crazy pirates. We're going to see some other tours in. Put the extra casing on it, so that way I had something to glue. I mean, yeah, do I have to drop $800-900 to replace the whole thing? I do. The other camera in my bag is around the same. because it's got a lot more moving parts to it.
Wow.
So,
That's the Ghostbusters one?
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff, actually. It's a Phasm cam. So, do you guys keep up with like the latest ghost hunting equipment at all?
I don't.
So, before we leave here, I'll show you what it looks like because we're going to end over there by that wall anyway. I'll be able to set my bag down. But I'll show you what that camera looks like. I don't always bring it out with a smaller group just because that one's way more fun to watch for you guys later. So, first and foremost, we're going to be talking about that little building over there with the crosses on it. The reason I started this off back here is because the tours like to cut through here, and sometimes they stop and talk about the power magazines. I'll let them have it.
Thank you.
Sorry, my eyes always go into like what's happening. But again, you could turn the turnbuckles, and it's supposed to tighten the building up just enough so it doesn't incur any further damage. So it's a cool idea. That just don't work. Just so you know, I talk to a lot of Californians. They laugh every time I talk about this. But the reason I bring those up is part of the reason why we're here. Those are the first set of earthquake bolts that Charleston put in because that's the oldest government building in South Carolina. So it was to protect their oldest asset. That building was finished in 1713. That's the same time frame that Anne Bonny was coming here to start her new life. So this building took 10 years to build. Does that sound like our government? Small building, 10 years? No. I'll answer for you. Our story begins right in the middle of it. So follow me. There's a lot of twists on this one. So I'll slow down on the twists so you guys can grasp like all the weird things. So 1708, a young lady moves here by the name of Anne Cormack. She's with her father and his mistress. His mistress is Anne's mother. Are you guys with me so far? Mm-hmm. The three of them are running away from her father's angry wife. Yeah. Okay, if I don't slow down on that one, you guys can see where that gets really twisted really fast. So, they actually, by the way, how pissed off was she that they left Ireland to come here? Like, just pointing that out. They land in Georgetown. Dad bought a plantation. Mom died pretty quickly. That means Dad is sending young Anne down here to sell anything from the plantation to help keep things afloat. That's why we're here. There's not many buildings this old, and this would be something recognizable. This would be the same principle of using a toy to attract the child ghost, like what they do on your TV shows. Same type of principle. It's a familiar. So, Anne back home in Ireland, though, let's talk about that for a second, was kind of a badass. They say she killed one of her servants when she was only 7, 8, 9 years old. Remember, it's pirate lore, can't get an exact number. With a knife to the belly. Knife and belly and servant have all shown up here in the same evening, just so you guys know. Now, fast forward, done in 1713. By 1715, pirates were coming through town, and Anne is stoked. Why? She's going to fall in love, so she can earn her freedom, just like a man. It's a man's world at this point in the game. By the way, those are acorns. Don't get freaked out. They happen here all the time. A lot of people are like, what the hell was that? So anyway, first guy she falls in love with. Yes, I said first because there's a handful, and we're going to go through them. That's the fun part. Now, first guy is James Bonny. You already see where this one's going, right? Because we've already mentioned Anne's pirate name. Dad didn't approve. He's a filthy pirate. They go to Jamaica. They got married. And Cormac is now Anne Bonny. This guy is not Captain Jack Sparrow that she was hoping for, right? Because every young lady wants a Captain Jack Sparrow. This guy turns out to be a privateer, which means he's a spy for the British. He's a coward in her eyes. This is not who she wants. Oh, you're getting all kinds of letters.
Yeah.
You getting any numbers coming up?
This is the only place where I've been 0.
Okay. Did you have something back at the Philadelphia alley?
No, just when we're into the power lines.
Okay, gotcha. So a few years later, she falls in love again. Guy number 2. This is John Rackham, a.k.a. Calico Jack. This is literally the person that they based your Captain Jack Sparrow character off of, so this is the guy that she's looking for. He has his own ship, and wants to be part of it. Can't put a girl on a pirate crew. Do you know why? Anybody? Other than the angry guy at the parking garage? Girls are bad luck. I see the wheels spinning like you're thinking dirty. Yeah, I got you. Girls are bad luck on a pirate ship. So he makes a deal with her. If you dress like a guy and look like the crew, you can be part of the crew, but you're going to be a female in my quarters. She's okay with this because Dad back home in Ireland used to cross-dress her as a boy apprentice back home in Ireland to keep her away from his wife. So she's like, whatever, it's a man's world, I'm a pirate, let's go. Put 2 and 2 together. She's a female in his quarters. She's eventually going to get pregnant. You cannot have a pregnant pirate dude on the crew. Somebody's going to figure it out, that she's female and that Jack let her on the ship. So, before she starts the show, he drops her off in Cuba. Go have the baby over here. These are friends of mine. They'll help you out. Come back later and we'll figure it out. Do you have something?
It says decomposed.
Jeez, we are next to a cemetery.
I was like, oh, that's why I just was thinking.
We get a lot of weird clues out of that cemetery, by the way.
Okay.
So she goes and has the baby in Cuba, but comes back with no baby. We have no idea what happens to this child. No amount of research that I've done can find what happened to the child. The weird thing about this part of the story is she comes back dressed as a female. This makes Jack pretty angry because now everybody's going to know that he let a girl on the crew. So, While she was away giving birth to his baby, he captured another pirate crew. They're down below deck. She's going to go flirting with that pirate crew because that's what Anne does. She's going to make him even more mad. Guy number 3, in case you lost track. Guy number 3 turns out to be a female. Dressed like a guy. To be part of the pirate crew. Cool. There we go. I think I got it tightened up enough now. Perfect. But we'll see white lines on there. What I've noticed is when those white lines show up, whoever you're filming, their device stops working. Like, shuts off.
Wow.
Like, I'm not talking like she hears weird scrambling and screeching. I'm saying like her spirit box will like shut off. Yeah. And then once you get out of that space, you stop filming her, it'll start working again. It's weird. I've seen it happen several times at this location.
Interesting.
So, any crazy letters coming through that I need to know?
No letters. It said African American founder.
All right, so founder is good, and so is African American. 2 different things on those, though.
Church.
We're on Church Street.
Huh?
We're on Church Street.
Yeah.
And you got gospel. I gotta write those other things down.
Don't forget disease too earlier.
Yep. See, that's why I keep you guys around.
How big of a drop do you look for?
15.
48. It's the lowest I've seen. 47, 48.
If you're capturing the leaves, I'll look at it. It's much easier to watch on a big screen. All right, so disease. We were talking about founder. Charles Pinckney, the nephew, is. No, this one's not right there either. But the nephew is across the street. He's buried over there along with Eliza's husband. So we have 2 Charles Pinckneys over there. The nephew is considered a founder of South Carolina. We do get that term a lot over here. And then as far as African American, most pirates were slaves. They're cargo. They were pirates stealing cargo. So they had free hands basically. So again, we do get slave African American. We do get those kind of terms around here a lot, and it's usually kicks up when I'm start talking about piracy. And you might even see like some of the crops that they had. So you might see like wheat, sugar. You see rice coming up. What's the other major one? There's another major crop.
Cotton, rice, and what the hell's the third one?
Well, sugar is a big pirate one because we're talking about Nassau and where they can actually grow things.
Yes.
Of what they can actually grow over there. But we've had the word sugar show up here quite a bit. All right, so 43 disease. What else is she here? Church and gospel. Thank you.
Wait, so by following the story, what's the significance of this again?
We're here because it would be something she would recognize.
Because she's been there.
It was being built at the time she came here. So she was traveling from Georgetown down here. And again, we're still within the original Charlestown walls.
Yep.
So she would have had to come inside the walls in order to be able to sell, the rice that her father was growing. So again, this is a big hit or miss. When we do get something, it's a big hit. Otherwise, it's a big miss.
Gotcha.
Like it's one of those locations. Bonus. Let me know if you see the letters SHH show up, like kind of mentality. That's a big one over here too, but it's a whole different story. I haven't told it in a while, but it's one of the big ones. We have certificates. All right. What else do you have? You're starting to get the gist.
Huh?
You're starting to get it.
Yeah. It's hard because I don't know what. There's a coherent thing. It's like there's coherent thing.
jittery. See, when you have like every letter showing up like that, that's usually when you want to scale it back just a little bit.
Okay.
Because that means it's just stopping on every letter because there's something happening. Watch out for this Jeep.
Thanks, Bryce. Mental.
It's not easy to do, is it? It's usually my first cup of coffee. That's the first thing I go through. Like, just because it takes the longest.
Yeah.
Because again, even with your video, you're probably only recording an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. There's definitely going to be the 2 hours on there. So I do that first. Sandwich?
It's hungry.
I know. We got some hungry people over
Some
here.
modern day food.
Yeah. Bring me a sandwich.
I'm going to, like, normally when things come through, it's almost immediate. Nothing's really, I mean, it's interesting that they both see a man in blue wearing a white shirt. Just very weird.
Huh.
Oh, the next space we're going to, he's like looking over there looking for the ghost. Love it.
30.3.
What?
30.
Get out of here.
It was 30.3.
14.
14.3. Right as he said he felt colder.
And you didn't have any letters pop through?
I got
12.7.
double. Well, not letters. I got.
Well, the letters I'm asking because that device works the exact same way as her numbers.
I got BW.
We definitely got 30 because you saw it too.
Yep, 30.2. Okay.
22.2. And I got backyard orientation double.
So 30 point what?
3. And then we got 22.2.
And then you had a 14?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good stuff. That's a good start. Any, I'm looking for the letters HT in here.
Oh, 48.9.
I could put it up, maybe?
Oh yeah, definitely get the sensitivity up.
It's over here. That's why.
But yeah, but where's it coming? Nobody's ever recorded anything from this.
Corn.
On the opposite side.
Right as we walked in.
Wow. Are you hearing it?
35.2.
What was it?
35.2.
Wow. Okay.
26.1. Okay, it's like over here.
Where is it coming? 'Cause I don't see any electrical.
Yeah, they don't have any.
Alright.
Corn.
I'm gonna try to get out of this.
What 2 letters did you say?
HT?
It bounces up to like 12 or 13.
So, the weird thing is, I wanted to come up to this location, and the first night that I brought somebody up here, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. So, because there's monuments all over this whole location. This is a pretty famous park for us. This is Washington Park, named after George Washington, which the monument's right there. Now, there's a big group over there by the monument that I normally take us to, but that is a monument of Henry Timrod.
So like point over here. That's what I did.
Well, pointing it doesn't do anything. It's a matter of like, it's literally around the device. It's touching the device. Wherever the reading is coming from, it has to be that close. It's not kind of like, oh, I pointed at that building, so it must be coming from the building. It's literally touching the device. But that bust over there that they're all huddled around is Henry Timrod. He is a poet and an author. He actually sought me out the first night we were here. We had his full year of his death, or of his birth, which was 1829, came through on a spirit box, verified. We had the name Henry and the name Tim show up on 2 other spirit boxes. His name is Henry Timrod. So we had Henry and Tim. I was pretty stoked. So
It said pleasure right when you said that he saw you out.
maybe you guys should have swapped a long time ago.
Yes.
You're getting the high EMFs and he's
I'm a
getting
great
the worst.
listener, so.
So, interesting. The only bits I know about Henry is that this was during the Civil War. So he was going to go fight for the Confederate Army. Obviously, he's from South Carolina. He's considered a Charleston native. So he's actually from here. He was born here. He goes to fight for the Army, but he was sick. He was sick through a good portion of his life. Well, his comrades basically seen how sick he was, and they said, you know what, why don't you go home and be the voice of the war? Because they knew he was a poet. So he started writing, he goes home and he starts writing poetry about the war, and they started calling him the laureate of the war. So again, he's a pretty famous, like he's right up there with Poe. If you really start to study poetry, he's in that same bracket. Not as dark, but what he did for society was a pretty big deal. The weird thing is he has a friend, Paul Hayne Hamilton, that he went to school with in college. Paul says, I know you're going through a hard time with your sickness. You just lost your son, and I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to bring that up later. Why don't you come stay at my cottage while I'm away doing whatever else he was doing out here in Columbia, in the middle of the state, and you can have the privacy and a whole new area to just write. So he took him up on the offer, and he goes up there, and it's 1867. Starts writing, and he writes his last words. And those words, holder of brief mortality, meaning holder of short life. And then Henry coughs, and it lands on the page in the form of blood. Dies immediately. He had tuberculosis. The interesting thing about this page is that the blood that landed on the page looks like a man writing. I'm going to show you the page. And this whole collection is over at the Charleston Library Society. So what's weird is that's where I heard the story. I was on a ghost tour one night, and a friend of mine, one of the few friends I have in this industry, told us this story, but of the hauntings that go on over there. So I was pretty surprised when I started getting things relative to Henry here. They only show this book one day a year on Halloween. It's called the Blood Book. And this is the page, the day. Let me open up my tablet. So after I show you this page, and you can even read the bottom line, it says beholder of brief mortality, but you can see that it does look like a man writing. So, Henry died at the age of 38. He had a son. I'm not going to tell you what his name is, because we've actually had his name pop through twice now. So it's a very specific name, and it's not going to be as common as, say, Charles or, that kind of mentality. You can kind of get the gist of it. But what I like to do is I always like to read the last stanza of his poem called Charleston. I know it sounds weird and everybody drones out when I say I'm going to read poetry, but again, it's poetry. We're stirring shit up, right? Because that's what we're out here to do. And the last 4 lines of that poem are almost relevant to what we're actually doing out here. So again, I've read a lot of his poetry since all of this started to happen in November, so I was kind of like, man, I got to stir something up somehow. And he wrote this in 1862, so this is right in the middle of the Civil War. We know not in the temple of the fates, God has inscribed her doom. Take note that he puts God as a female. Just thought that was very interesting as well. And all untroubled in her faith, she waits the triumph or the tomb. He's basically stating that we don't know the outcome of Charleston, and we won't know until the war is over. Will she triumph, or will she fall to the tomb? So again, I like the word tomb, I like the word triumph. Why? They keep showing up here through your guys' spirit boxes. So it's really cool shit. That's exactly why I keep, reading this stanza over and over and over again. 2 things we can find out here, and again, many monuments in this location.
And that was really strong, and then it went away.
It's been like 0.
Over here. So we probably need to go back to the other location.
The other word that came up when I was over there was Mason.
We were near Washington. He was a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
So, they.
Yeah.
Symbols, seal, anything that can kind of go along with that to kind of verify that it is Washington as a Freemason.
Mm-hmm.
So here they by how your phone can pick it up, but they actually work. I test them all the time.
50.8.
Anything in the 40s.
50.
Yeah. It's called True EMF Detector. So it's one of the ones I like to trust it because I tested it, but the only problem is it uses different units. Like this, you just test it. Translate it either way. Yeah, anything in the 40s is usually pretty standard.
33 again. Which is the same place. 33 again.
Another 33.
Same place as last time.
Yeah, you guys should have swapped a while ago. Anything flickering on that camera yet?
No.
Yeah, everywhere else it's been like zeros, and then over here it like drops, so it's just been like 50.
Just crazy spikes, huh?
Is there John anywhere here?
19.
That's the clearest word I've heard in the last 10 minutes.
John.
43.
You must be big on 43 because you heard that number earlier tonight.
Yeah. 31. 48.
48?
48. Did you get 50?
No.
I'm serious. 118.
Are you getting anything coming through? Is everybody feeling okay? Those are pretty high EMFs. Any headaches? Stomach turning? Nothing?
My stomach was hurting when we walked in, but I'm Jewish, so. You know, comes with the.
Anything coming through on your end?
It said learn the truth right before.
I want to test another corner because I don't think I've ever gone this far. So let's bring your EMF over here.
And the line is not good for sure.
That's me.
At least you're still.
Oh, it's still me. Okay. Well.
Yeah, as soon as I walk away, it was on you.